The sun was hot that afternoon. Birds flew slowly over the airport roof, and James sat alone on a long wooden bench. His bag rested at his feet, dusty from the long trip. His heart? It was beating fast. Too fast. He had just landed in Nigeria after 21 years. That's a very, very long time. He had been in America since he was a teenager. Now he was grown, with a beard, a deep voice, and tired eyes. But deep down, he still felt like that same little boy who used to run around barefoot on the red sand in the village. He looked around. So many people were hugging, laughing, crying. People had come to pick up their brothers, sisters, mummies, daddies. But James? He waited. He kept looking at the big airport doors, hoping to see one familiar face. His brother. Where was his brother? James pulled out his phone, hands shaking. He dialed. Once, no answer. Twice, still no answer. 3 times. The phone didn't even ring anymore. Maybe he forgot, James whispered to himself, trying not to cry. He stood up slowly, dragging his black bag behind him. He walked outside. Taxis were lined up, shouting, "Where you dey go? Enter taxi, Oga!" James looked at one man who looked kind. "Please," James said, "take me to my father's house. Here's the address." The driver nodded and opened the back door. The ride was quiet. James looked out the window. The city had changed. Finally, the car stopped in front of a big brown gate. James stepped out. He looked up. It was his father's house. The gate was open. He stepped in. Slowly. The compound was filled with people. So many people. Chairs everywhere, music playing, balloons floating in the air. Then he saw a big banner. "Welcome home, James!" His mouth opened wide. He couldn't move. People started clapping and shouting, "James is back! James! He's here!" And then, from the middle of the crowd, an old man with gray hair came running toward him. It was his dad. "James!" the old man cried. James froze. His hands shook. Then he ran. He ran into his father's arms, and they both broke down crying. They held each other so tight, like if they let go, they would disappear. James kept whispering, "Daddy, Daddy, I missed you so much." And his dad just cried louder, holding his son's face in his hands. "You came back. You finally came back." Tears fell like rain. People watched in silence. Some wiped their own eyes, and just when James turned around, someone else stepped out of the house. A woman in a blue wrapper. She had tiny braids and tired eyes, but her smile was big. So big. It was Mrs. Mary. She was the one who raised James after his mother died. James's mother had passed away, giving birth to him. It was a sad story. His father was heartbroken. Everyone in the village whispered about it. "He needs to marry again," they said. So 1 year later, he married Mary. She was gentle, kind, and she took James as her own son. She fed him, bathed him, taught him how to write his name. And when James got a scholarship to study abroad, they had no money. You know what she did? She sold her wrappers, her favorite ones. James saw her now, and he ran. He fell on his knees and hugged her legs. "Mommy! Mommy!" She pulled him up and hugged him so tight. "I told you I would wait," she whispered. And she did. Even when her hair turned gray, she waited. That night, the party became something else. People danced, ate jollof rice and goat meat. Kids played with balloons. Old men sipped palm wine and shared stories. But James sat quietly between his father and Mrs. Mary. He looked at them, and for the first time in many years, he felt at home. Then something bothered him. He looked around. Mark, his little stepbrother, wasn't at the airport, and now he wasn't at the party either. Where was he? Mark wasn't just a brother. James helped raise him. He remembered little Mark calling him Big Bro, crawling after him, laughing, hiding behind him when scared. James stepped outside. Just then, headlights appeared, slow and quiet. A car pulled up. James squinted. The door opened. Mark stepped out, tall, wearing a black shirt and jeans. No smile, no hug, just welcome home. James felt a chill. Their father saw him and stood. "Mark, where have you been?" Mark said calmly. "The car broke down. I waited at the mechanic." James joined them. Their father, clearly upset, said, "You left your brother alone at the airport!" "I tried to call. There was no service," Mark replied, his face blank. "You should have found help," the father snapped. James stepped in. "It's okay, Dad. Don't be upset." But their father shook his head. "No, James, you're his brother. He should have welcomed you." Mark looked down, then said quietly, "Everyone acts like James is the only one that matters." The room went silent. James had been home in Nigeria for 1 week now. Every single day he woke up early and visited someone, a friend, an uncle, an old school teacher. Everybody wanted to see him. "James, you're back!" they would shout. They hugged him, shook his hands, gave him food. Some even cried. It was a happy time. But deep inside, James was waiting for something more. He had worked hard in America for 21 years. He did jobs where he stood on his feet all day. He washed plates, cleaned toilets, saved every penny. He never bought fancy clothes, never went on vacation. All because he had one dream: to build a home, a house for himself, and another house to rent out so he could make money even while sleeping. He sent the money to his family, over $200,000. That's a lot. Enough to build 2 nice houses and even buy a car. He trusted them. Now it was time to see what they built for him. So one Sunday evening, after a long day of visiting, James called everyone to the living room: his dad, his stepmom, Mrs. Mary, and his younger stepbrother, Mark. James smiled, but his voice was serious. "I want to go see the house tomorrow." Everyone was quiet. Mark nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "I'll take you there." James felt a little relief. Finally. That night he packed his camera, a notebook, and his phone. He was ready to see his dream come true. The next morning, James woke up early. The sun was not even fully out yet. The sky was still sleepy. Birds chirped softly outside the window. He took a bath, got dressed, and walked to Mark's room. Knock, knock, knock. "Mark, let's go," he called. No answer. He knocked again. "Mark?" Still no answer. James pushed the door gently. The room was empty. The bed was not touched. Mark was gone. James blinked. Gone? Where? He called Mark's phone. Switched off. He waited. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3. Mark didn't come back that day, and not the next dot. James was confused, angry, worried. Where is he? After 2 full days, Mark finally came back home. His shirt was dirty. He looked tired. But when James asked, "Let's go to the house," Mark just scratched his head and said, "Not today. I'm busy." Busy? James tried again the next day, and the next, and the next. Each time, Mark gave a new excuse. "It's raining. I have a headache. The house is being painted. Let's go next week." James grew tired. He knew something was wrong. One afternoon, James walked straight into Mark's room. Mark was lying on the bed, pressing his phone. James didn't waste time. "We're going to the house today," he said. Mark looked up slowly. "I can't today." James stepped closer. "No more lies." Mark sat up. "I said I'm not going." James couldn't take it anymore. "Why are you doing this?" he shouted. "You said the house was ready." Their father and Mrs. Mary ran into the room. "What's going on?" their dad asked. "He doesn't want to take me to see the house," James said, pointing at Mark. "Mark," their mom said firmly, "take your brother to the house. He's been asking you for days." Mark looked away. "I said I'm not going," he shouted, trying to walk past James, but James pulled him back. "Why are you running? What are you hiding?" Mark tried to push James away. That was it. James slapped him. Mark fell to the ground. Everyone gasped. Mark sat on the floor, holding his cheek, breathing fast. "I didn't mean to slap you," James said, shaking, "but I want the truth. Now!" Then something strange happened. Mark's eyes filled with tears. He looked at his brother, then at his parents, and he said in a soft, broken voice, "There is no house." The room went silent. Mrs. Mary held her chest. Their father dropped his walking stick. "What?" James whispered. "I said, there is no house," Mark repeated. His mom shook her head. "Stop lying, Mark. You took us to that house twice. We saw it." Mark looked at her sadly. "That wasn't James's house. It belongs to a man I met in the street. I begged him to let me show you all. I didn't want you to suspect anything." Tears rolled down his face. "I'm sorry." James dropped to the floor. His legs felt like jelly. "What about the money I sent?" he asked, his voice shaking like a paper in the wind. Mark couldn't look at him. "I used it for gambling and some business ideas, but they failed." I thought I could double the money and surprise you. I messed up. James felt like the world was spinning. He covered his face and cried, loud, the kind of cry that breaks your heart open. Mrs. Mary sat beside him, holding his hand. She cried too. Their father leaned on the wall, wiping his eyes. His lips kept whispering, "No, no." Mark sat alone in the corner, full of shame, regret, fear. Minutes passed. James lifted his head, eyes red. He pointed at Mark. "I'm giving you till tomorrow. If I don't get back my money, I'll take you to the police." Mark opened his mouth, but no words came out. James stood up. His legs wobbled. His heart was in pieces. He walked slowly to his room, closed the door, fell on the bed, and cried himself to sleep. The next morning, the sun rose like it always did, but inside James's room, something was not right. He had barely slept. His eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling as if it held answers. His heart felt like it was on fire. He was sweating even though the fan was on. All he could hear in his head were the same words over and over again. My money, 21 years, my whole life. Suddenly, James jumped off the bed. He didn't walk, he stormed. He began pulling down the curtains, throwing his pillows, scattering clothes all over the floor. He opened drawers and poured everything out. Then he started laughing. Not the kind of laugh that comes from a happy place. This one was loud, scary, and sad, like something was broken inside him. He shouted again, "Where is my money? Y'all should give me my money! My F*** king money!" He kept yelling over and over, louder each time. His voice echoed through the house. Then, right there in the middle of his room, he started pulling off his clothes. First his shirt, then his trousers. He didn't care. He didn't feel shame. His mind was no longer there. His stepmother, Mrs. Mary, was in the kitchen when she heard the first crash. She paused, then heard James shouting. She dropped the plate she was washing and ran. James's father heard too. He was reading a newspaper in the sitting room when the voice hit him like thunder. "That's James," he whispered, and quickly stood up, holding his chest. They both rushed to James's room, and when they opened the door, what they saw made them freeze. James was standing in the middle of the room, half naked, throwing things and screaming, "My money! I want my money! You all stole it! You took it!" "James, it's me," Mrs. Mary said gently, stepping forward. But James didn't even look at her. His eyes were blank, cold, distant, like he didn't know who she was. He looked through her, past her, and kept shouting. His father tried to hold him, but James shoved him so hard the old man nearly fell. James ran outside, barefoot, shouting, laughing, crying. People on the street stared. Some came out of their houses. "Is that not Mary's son?" they asked. "The one that just came back from abroad?" He ran into the main road, screaming at cars. He tore his shirt, rolled on the ground, picked up sand and threw it in the air. No one could hold him. Nobody could stop him. James had gone mad. Back at home, his father sat down slowly on the floor of the sitting room. His hands were shaking. He looked like all the blood had drained from his face. He clutched his chest and gasped. "My heart! I can't breathe! Mary!" Mrs. Mary screamed and rushed to his side. "Call someone! Somebody help!" They rushed him to the hospital. Doctors tried their best. They gave him medicine, oxygen, and begged him to stay strong. But after 2 days, James's father gave up the fight. The heartbreak of watching his son lose his mind was too much for his old heart to handle. He died with tears in his eyes. James was still missing. He had vanished into the streets. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months. Then one day, someone spotted him at a market. James was there, shirtless, dirty, barefoot, with a big sack on his back. He was picking trash, laughing, talking to himself. He was a ghost of the man he used to be. Market women gave him small food sometimes. Children ran from him. People called him names: madman, crazy, a broad dog. After their father's burial, Mark and his mother packed up and left the family house. They didn't leave a word. They didn't tell neighbors where they were going. They just disappeared like smoke. Some said they moved to a faraway village. Others said they traveled out of the country. Nobody knew for sure. James stayed on the street for 3 whole years. That's 1,095 days of suffering. Rain beat him. Sun burned him. He begged for food, slept under bridges, ate from the ground. One sunny afternoon, a black car was driving past a busy market. Inside the car was a man named Emmanuel. He was rich now, dressed in a fine suit and shiny shoes, but years ago he and James had lived together in America. They were like brothers. When James moved back to Nigeria, Emmanuel had tried to call him many times, but the number never went through. Emmanuel was in the car talking to his driver when he saw someone on the side of the road. "Wait! Stop the car!" he said. The driver pulled over. Emmanuel stared. His heart dropped. "James?" he whispered. He opened the door and stepped out. Slowly, carefully. He walked closer to the man digging through a trash can. He saw the dirty hair, the tired eyes, the sunburnt skin, but he knew that face. It was older, broken, but it was James. "James! James, it's me!" he shouted, running forward. James looked up, confused. He didn't speak. He didn't seem to remember, but Emmanuel didn't stop. He waved two boys over and gave them money to help carry James into a taxi. "I'm taking him to the hospital," he said. "I can't leave him like this." They drove straight to a private clinic. Doctors gave James food, medicine, and a clean bed. But even after 1 month, nothing changed. James still stared at walls, still talked to himself. Emmanuel stayed by his side. Then one day a doctor came in and said, "We've done all we can, but maybe this isn't just medical. Maybe it's spiritual." Emmanuel nodded. He knew what he had to do. That night, he took James to a small church deep in the outskirts of the city. The service was long. People clapped, prayed, and cried. James sat in front, eyes closed, not moving. Then, during the midnight prayers, something strange happened. James began to shake. He shouted. He screamed. He held his head and cried, "Leave me alone!" The pastor touched his forehead and prayed louder. The whole church was awake now, praying, singing, weeping. And then, just as the clock struck 3 a.m., James fell to the ground. Still, silent, everyone waited. Minutes passed. Then James opened his eyes. He blinked. He looked around, confused. "Where am I?" he whispered. Emmanuel jumped up. "You're back!" he cried. "Oh my God, James, you're back!" James sat up slowly, looking at his hands, at his clothes, at the church. He touched his face, then tears rolled down his cheeks. I remember," he said in a quiet voice. "I remember everything." And he began to cry, not because he was mad, but because he was finally free. 2 days later, James sat in the back seat of Emmanuel's car, staring out the window. His face looked calm, but his heart was full of questions. His body had healed, his mind was clear again, but the pain inside his chest was still fresh. He had been through fire, madness, hunger, shame, and now he was ready to face what was left behind. "Take me home," he told Emmanuel. They drove through the city. Streets passed, people passed, but James didn't blink. He just kept thinking. When they finally got to the family house, James stepped out of the car slowly. The gate was closed. The compound was quiet. The house looked tired, like no one had lived in it for a long time. James pushed open the gate, heart pounding. He stepped inside, calling softly, "Mama? Mark? Papa?" No answer. He knocked on the front door. Nothing. He peeped through the window. Empty. He sat outside, confused. A neighbor walked past and stopped. "Ah, are you not James?" James turned slowly. "Yes, it's me." The woman gasped. "We thought you were dead. After your father died and you ran mad, nobody saw you again." "My father died? How?" James shouted. "Oh, God!" Tears rolled down his cheeks, falling fast and without stopping. James looked down. "Where are my stepmother and Mark?" The woman sighed and shook her head. "They packed out long ago. One night a truck came and they loaded everything. Nobody knew where they went." James's hands shook. His lips trembled. "Gone? Just like that?" He sat there quietly, eyes full of tears. The neighbor touched his shoulder gently. "I think someone here might still have Mark's number." Later that day, a young boy who used to wash cars in the street came running. "Oga James, I get him. I get your brother number." James took the number with shaking hands. He looked at Emmanuel. "Call it, please." Emmanuel dialed. It rang once, twice, then someone picked. "Hello?" the voice said. James froze. He knew that voice. It was Mark. "Hello? Who is this?" Mark asked again. James took the phone slowly and whispered, "Mark, it's me, James." There was silence on the other end, then a loud gasp. James? You're alive?" James said nothing. His heart was pounding. Mark stuttered, "Oh my God, I thought you were gone. I'm so sorry. Please, come to the house. Let me see you." James was quiet. Then he asked, "Which house?" Mark paused, then said softly, "The one you saw in the pictures." James's eyes widened. He handed the phone back to Emmanuel. "Let's go," he said. They drove for a long time, past rich neighborhoods, tall buildings, fenced mansions. James kept quiet the whole ride. Then the car turned into a long driveway with a shiny black gate. The gate opened, and there it was, the house. The one from the pictures. The one Mark had been sending him all those years. Tall, white, glass windows, a big green garden. James stepped out of the car slowly. His legs felt heavy. His heart beat loudly. And then Mark appeared at the door. As soon as he saw James, he dropped to his knees. "I'm sorry," he said in a shaky voice. "Please forgive me, please." James stood still, too shocked to speak. Mrs. Mary came out too, her eyes wide, her clothes dirty, and her hair rough. She looked like someone who hadn't slept for days. She kept whispering something under her breath, like she was talking to a ghost. Mark cried harder. This is your house, James. It has always been your house." James didn't move. He stared at the house, then back at his stepbrother. "Why?" he asked, his voice soft and broken. "Why did you do it?" Mark wiped his face. "Mama, she told me to. She said we couldn't let you come back and enjoy everything while we lived in the old house. She said the house should be mine, that you'd already lived a good life in America." James turned to look at Mrs. Mary. She was now sitting on the ground, smiling and talking to herself, whispering songs only she could hear. She went to a native doctor," Mark said quietly, "to stop you from claiming everything. They said the charm would make you mad." James's heart stopped. Tears filled his eyes. You planned it?" he whispered. Mark fell flat on the floor. "Please, we didn't know it would be this bad. We didn't know it would kill Dad. We didn't know it would last that long. Mama is now mad too. The doctor said the curse is permanent. We are paying for it every day. Please help me." James turned his back and stared at the house again. His house. His 21 years of pain, of working, of sacrifice. He clenched his fists. His teeth were tight. He closed his eyes for a moment, then took a deep breath. He pulled out his phone and called the police. Within minutes, 2 police vans arrived. They arrested Mark and Mrs. Mary, thrown to the street. The officers looked at James. "Do you want to press charges?" James looked down for a long time, then nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "They took my life. They need to know what that feels like." Mark screamed as they dragged him away. "I'm sorry, brother. Please forgive me, please." James turned away. He didn't look back. Months later, the house was quiet again. Clean, fresh paint, new flowers in the garden. James stood by the front door in a fine black suit, holding a woman's hand. It was his wedding day. His new wife smiled up at him. "Are you ready?" James nodded. "I'm ready to begin again." That night, they flew back to the United States. Together, they started a new life. He never spoke to Mark again. He never asked about Mrs. Mary. He forgave them in his heart, but he left them in the past. Because James had learned the hard way that not everyone who calls you family truly loves you. But from that day on, he finally lived in peace. And this time, the house he slept in, he was sure it was truly his.